Hi, I'm here today to demo some of the new features of SoccerDad version 2.3. What I'm going to start out with is looking at some of the smaller features and then go into some of the more important things. So first of all, in this particular database I have 3 teams set up. So when I go to my schedule, my schedule can grow pretty long here, and if I'm really done with spring, it would be nice to be able to sort of filter that information out, so I'm just focusing on this particular season or a particular team. So now there is an option under settings, scroll down, called Teams Filter, and here I can actually check off the things that I want to keep included in my list. So I'm just going to check off the 2 teams for this season, and then when I go back to my schedule, the blue team items are gone. So again, I can actually show you that from here. Yellow is gone, yellow is included. So this can be used to restrict both the schedule and also the stats tabs. Again, you can include and exclude things. So it just makes the system a little bit easier to manage once your database grows in size. Okay, so let's go back to the schedule. I want to show you a couple of new features inside the game setup itself. So let me go into a game, go into the details of the game. And one of the things that a lot of people have requested revolves around goalkeepers. Okay, so SoccerDad is kind of neat. You can set up your rotations and it'll generate all of your rotations for you. But it's a little bit inconvenient if SoccerDad insists on switching everybody at the same time, and especially in the goalkeeping position, because people have to get their gloves on and things like that. So there used to be an option called Fix Goalkeeper, and that was basically a switch. So all that did is it meant that you kept the goalkeeper fixed for the entire game. So that was okay, but a little inflexible. So right now that's changed a little bit. So this is saying you're going to keep the goalkeeper fixed for 1 rotation. That's the sort of default behavior you get today. But what you can do is you can go in and edit this, and my particular game is 8 rotations. So let's say I wanted to keep the goalkeeper on for the first half, switch him at half time and put somebody else on. I can say I want to keep the goalkeeper fixed for 4 rotations. Okay? So that's a nice little addition there. What we can now do is I can save that. I can go into my game plan, and let's generate some rotations for this particular game plan. Okay, so it's generated rotations now. It's actually placed Jillian in goal in the first rotation. So as we move rotations, you can see that Jillian is staying fixed for my first 4 rotations, and then the other side of half time we've got Ian coming in, and Ian is staying fixed for the second half. Okay. So you may have noticed another feature that's showing up in these screens, and that is another of the things that people have mentioned to me in their emails and their enhancement requests is it was kind of difficult to see as rotations went from one rotation to the other, both in the game plan and also when playing the game. It was kind of difficult to see, well, who is actually changing position. So the way that I've integrated that, okay, so this is going into my second rotation. We already talked about Julian is remaining fixed. So what this is telling me is, AJ is coming on in this position, and going off is Ava. So it tells you the position name, left wing. Minus sign means she's off the field, and it's Ava, and then AJ is replacing her. Okay, so in this particular game plan, we're sort of switching pretty much everybody except the goalkeeper for each rotation. Okay, so that's a new feature, these little extra indicators here, and you'll also see that when we go into the game itself. Another little addition to the game plan is another report. This is called the Planned Coverage Report. So what does this do? This basically shows you, you're going across the top of the report, you have the rotations 1 through 8, okay, and that's obviously varies by how you set up your rotations. Going down the side are the players in your head count. And then in the cells it shows you what positions they're actually going to play. So this is a good overall picture of the game, and you can make sure that people aren't being missed totally, or sitting on the bench for too long, that type of thing. So let's take Noah here. He's in defense, he sits out, he's a left wing, he actually sits out a couple of rotations, then he's centre forward. Okay, so you can see that he's actually moving through all positions on the field during the game. Okay, so that's kind of a neat report. Now, another thing that people have mentioned to me is, well, you know what, I don't really like your terminology for position names. And people have made all sorts of suggestions, but what I came up with is there's no single idea that fits everybody. So we had an idea in the whiteboard where you could actually rename things, but I've actually brought that into a more central place in the application. So if we again go into settings, there's a new button here called formations. So let's go in to formations. And basically there's one page in here for each of the formation types that you use within the application. So this is based on how you set up your games and things like that. So I have one of my teams who plays 6v6, and I have another team that happens to play 11v11. Okay, so I can do a couple of things in this particular screen. One thing I can do is what I mentioned before. So a lot of people don't like, oh well, those are two central defenders, but I really like to know one's on the left, one's on the right. So we can just tap on somebody, and we can say, okay, I'm going to call that LCD. Okay, and this one I'm going to make RCD. Okay, so those positions are relabeled, and now in the reports, in those little new substitution little tiles that come up, those positions will be referred to using whatever you've used to override the system defaults. The other thing that you can do in this screen is you can actually move things around. So Soccer Dad kind of lays things out in a very sort of geometrical way, but that may not be the way that you like to set up your formation. And maybe 6v6 is not the best place to show this, but maybe 11v11 is a good place. So, you know, that's not really how you want people to set themselves up. So what you can do is you can actually start to move people around into more realistic positioning on the field. Okay, so again, once you do this, then that will be used in the game plan or in the playing of the game to actually lay out those particular screens. The other thing to notice here is there used to be a restriction in Soccer Dad where you could only put like 4 people in a particular position in defense or whatever. That's now changed to 5, and there's still a limit because of the screen real estate, especially on the iPhone. But again, I think that really caters for all the real possibilities that there are for laying out a formation. Anyway, so that allows you to change the names and also rearrange people on the field into more realistic positions. So that's formations. I just wanted to go on to one other thing inside settings. There are getting to be more and more things here, but a thing that's always been there is the ability to customize stats. Now, the one thing that was a problem in the older versions, or as an inconvenience, is when you went into this and decided that you wanted to customize things, it kind of started you out with a blank slate. And so you had to add back in all the system default ones that you wanted to use, and then add in any additional things that you wanted to keep track of. The way 2.3 works is when you go in here, it pulls in all the system defaults for you to start off with. You can delete them, remove them, put them back in if you want to, but the default behaviors, you get all those to start with, and you can extend them. Okay. The other thing that's been done in this version is a concept called linked stats. And again, people have written to me and they've said, you know what, when I enter a goal, I'd really like it to automatically enter other stats for me. And so, again, the default setup, a couple of these stats have been set up with these links already enabled, but again, you can customize all of this. So let's just show you the goal one for a second. Okay, so you get the normal things that you've had before. We'll talk about tweeting in a minute. But this section is new, this linked stats section. And what does this mean? This means when I'm in the game and I record a goal for one of my players, I want other actions to happen. So the way that this one is set up is that it's going to record a shot by the same player who actually scored the goal. It's going to record a shot on goal, because obviously you've done both of those things if you actually score. Okay, so again, and for each one of these you can say who did it. So basically this is by the person, the player who had the goal stat. And then you can have also other things that you'd like to be there to be convenient for you. So you can say, okay, I may want to record an assist, and what I want to do is I actually want to select the player who made the assist at the time that I record the goal. Okay, and maybe this goal came off a corner kick, so again, you might want to be able to specify the player who did the corner kick. Now, I'll show you this in a game, but basically if you don't pick these players, then those stats don't get recorded. So these are really sort of optional things, and they're just there to be convenient. They all get recorded at the same time. Okay, so that's linked stats. We can look at a couple of other ones. So this shows you another flavor of this. So this was shot on goal, okay, was the stat. So obviously you, again, you took a shot if you had a shot on goal, and the only reason it wasn't a goal is because the opposing team saved it, right? So that's the other thing that you can do. You can say, okay, if I have this stat, then the opposing team gets this other stat recorded against them. Okay, so that's another variation of linked stats. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about Twitter. That's something that was introduced, or the integration of Twitter was introduced in iOS 5. So SoccerDad now takes advantage of that integration if you're running on iOS 5. And it pops up in a couple of places in the app. So to set up the whole thing, there's a Twitter button inside settings. And really this flag is the thing that really turns everything on or off. So if you want to send tweets as you're using the application, you want to turn this on. And then you can specify some other things. So right now the integration is pretty basic, and what we're doing is we're using it to send tweets as the game is progressing. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to say, okay, well, what is my account that I'm going to use to send these tweets? And you have to say, this is just an iOS thing that says, okay, yes, I'm going to allow SoccerDad to access my accounts that I have set up in Twitter. And if you have multiple accounts, you just get to you just pick one here. Okay, so that's who you're going to be sending the tweet as. Okay, and then you get some options here. So I'm just going to turn these on. What this is saying is, okay, I want to send a tweet when the game starts. I want to send one at halftime, and the halftime tweet will send a tweet when halftime occurs, and it'll also include the score. And then I want to send a tweet at the end of the game, and again that will send the final score of the game. Okay, so that's sort of overall settings. And then we just saw it inside the stats themselves. So what you can do in stats, again, you can go in here, and for any stat you can say whether you want to send a tweet when you record that stat or not. Okay, so I think the way the default app is set up, if you turn on Twitter, it's going to send stats for goals, and it's also going to send stats for assists. And kind of the nice thing is, because you've got this linkage in here, it'll send a single tweet saying goal scored by somebody and the assist was by another player. Okay, so again, but you have control over that. Okay, The final thing to do with Twitter is over on your team. And Twitter allows you, or has this concept called hashtags, where you can put a hashtag on the end of your tweet, and it sort of can group things together. People can search by those things. So what SoccerDad allows you to do is actually specify a hashtag associated with your team. And if you specify this, all the tweets that you generate with games involving that team will include that hashtag. So parents who are following a particular team can just search for that, and they'll see all the tweets, and they can see them in real time as they're generated.